Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. Today, my guest, you all know her and love her, Barbra with. Also, it's so bizarre, Barbra, that I'm talking to you now because I just had like two people that reached out to me and were like, "Who was the lady that talked about Hitler?" And I'm thinking that's like last year, and it's weird that I would be calling. It's one of those synchronicities. How are you, my friend?
I am excellent, Karen. Thank you. And hi to everybody. I love being on your show.
Yes, and I have your book. I still have your book with me on internal say it for me. Say the
Conflict Revolution.
Conflict Revolution. I always think internal revolution because that's what I'm trying to do. Your books, all your stuff. We're going to talk about all that because you know I give lousy intros, but everybody knows you and everybody knows what you do. So let's start out with what you're doing now, folks. This is so exciting. You are in Scotland.
I am in Scotland right now. I am on what I've called my World Peace Tour. I left home last October.
Wow.
And I have been traveling ever since. I got to the UK in January 25th, and I've been traveling around. And yes, I did make it over to Paris for a few weeks, and now I'm back in Scotland. And it's just been a really phenomenal life that I've been living since then.
And you're calling it a peace tour, correct? I love that.
Yes. And what really inspired it, well, there were many things that inspired it, but part of it was that this year in February, I turned 69. And I know, I took this sort of about a year ago, I took this accounting of my life and my work. I've been doing this Einstein work and this channeling for about 30 years, over 30 years. I've got 6 books of this work, award-winning books. I've been often going around the world teaching and training, but I've also been an investigative reporter. And that happened in 2011 when I happened to be at the Wisconsin uprising in just by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And I helped found a media cooperative. And I kind of left behind the life of channeling Einstein and teaching conflict revolution to really stand up for my state. And I discovered then that it was kind of a corporate takeover of the state. And that's a long story, but I really dedicated myself then to what I think most Americans would do if they found themselves in that situation, which I think we all do today. Mm-hmm. But to really stand up to that. And to me, what that meant was reporting on what was really going on that people didn't know. And so I spent 12 years really dedicated to that and moving in and out of different, I had different jobs here and there. And I help people do books and I do readings, I do a lot of things. But about a year ago, I just thought, the world is in such a state and conflict revolution is the answer. To me, it's the answer. It's the thing that addresses the internal conflict that then is, as Einstein and the angels have said, a pathway to global peace.
And I'm so sorry, but I have to interrupt you to say one thing. You were so ahead of the curve. Do you know what I'm saying? Like now, This is all very popular and kind of stuff to talk about. I don't know that everyone's doing it right or doing it the same way you're doing it, but you were so ahead of the curve when you started this.
Well, yes, I was ahead of the curve with the conflict revolution. That was 30 years ago. We started researching and developing it. And at 30 years ago, in the 90s, there wasn't this kind of there were certainly global conflicts, but it was a prosperous time. World peace was a nice idea. And also in 2011, when I started doing the investigative journalism and standing up to corporate fascism is what I called it back then. And even my even my liberal friends back then were like, you can't use the word fascism. It's like, this is what it is.
Yeah, they're not
And
going to
in
take you
fact-
seriously if you use that word. And now look where we are.
I know. And I just did one of my blog posts on Synergy Alliance LLC. I just did a diary, and it was inspired because somebody had accused me the other week of drinking the Kool-Aid because I wasn't, carrying the propaganda. And I thought, I'm going to do this broadcast to show you the step-by-step process that I went through since 2011 to stand up to the corporate takeover of the state and then the country. And as I did that, I realized, holy smokes, what was 2011 was shocking is a way of life now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way the government is run.
Yes. And also, it's very interesting because with what you're doing, once you see it, you can't unsee it, because
That's right.
I was pretty much always kind of independent thinker when I lived in Los Angeles. But now that I'm out, Los Angeles really is programmed. And now I have to say, I think Jon Stewart is doing the best work he's ever done. And I'm watching the liberals just scream because he's telling the truth. But even when you were talking about starting in the 90s, there's a great movie that goes before that to the 80s. And it's The Octopus. I believe it's called The Octopus, about all the scandals and Reagan and all this stuff. But you said it beautifully, because in the 90s, we weren't really bothered by anything. Everybody had money. Everybody was doing okay. It was very hard to get people rattled. And I have this theory with a comedian friend of mine, something that happened that way, like the country started to split. I feel like you might have a different opinion on this. I feel like the country kind of started to split around Clinton. And I'm not saying I think you and I are kind of the same, Democrat, Republican. They're both the same edge of a sword. They're not two different parties. But there was sort of this, when they started talking about his affair, then there was no honor among thieves. That's what I felt like happened to them, is there was something there that all these guys do that. All these guys have done that, but he really got under their skin. And then Obama signed the act that said propaganda was okay. What was that called? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I don't remember what it was called, but he did that. And then, of course, he took away our right of habeas corpus. But yes. Propaganda. It was the fair something where networks had to be fair and really be fair and balanced. And then that was removed.
Right. And that's when you really saw opinion come in, which when you stand back and look, there is no difference between the channels. I mean, you can pick a side and say, I like what these guys are fighting for better than these guys. But when I hear one side talking about the hate of the other side, I'm like, oh my God, the mirror here. And then I think what happened, and I think this was what I'm just going to say, the powers that be. Everybody knows I like conspiracies. I get it. You may not be as conspiratorial as me, but I feel like what happened was when Trump won, especially comedians started making fun of Trump voters. Before that, you could make fun of George Bush. You could make fun of Obama a little bit. It got a little touchy. You could make fun of Bill Clinton. Everybody laughed. But all of a sudden, it wasn't going after the person. It was going after the people that voted for them. And the same way now with Biden. And now it's at the people. Like, I think whether they wanted that, but whether that was how they intended it or not, now the country is really split. Like, you can't talk at Thanksgiving kind of thing. Do you have a different view on all that?
No, I think that's really accurate. And what I noticed was from 2011 until 2016, I was deeply involved in election integrity in Wisconsin. I was a whistleblower at the Supreme Court recount, and I learned more about election integrity. I worked in groups where we had libertarians and Republicans and Democrats and progressives all working together on election integrity. And what I saw in 2016 was that all of the tricks that I learned from all of the activists who came before me were being employed by the Democratic Party against their own people.
Can you expand on that just a tad?
Well, the Bernie Sanders movement was rising, and the DNC actually were taken to court, and it was ruled that they actually did, in fact, rig the primary, but they're a private corporation, so they apparently couldn't discipline them. But what I saw happening in that movement, there was this David, I think his name was David Brock, and he had this thing called Correct the Record, which was just basically a bunch of trolls that would attack the Sanders voters. And this is getting back to your point. And so when Trump won, my theory is that after what they did to their own people, the Democratic Party, that they went on to think they were going to rig the national, and because the only way to beat a rig is to have an overwhelming response. There were millions of people who pledged not to vote for her because of what had happened. And then we found that turned on the whole, the whole Russiagate scandal and all of that started to foment this attack on the people rather than the issues. What was he actually doing? And then going back to when Obama sort of deregulated the news industry, suddenly there was this license to have massive amounts of propaganda that really just came out of nowhere. And this is getting to the point that I'm to right now as I'm in Scotland. I was in London in February for Julian Assange's last appeal trial. And I spent the day, nobody got to see the trial and nobody got to see anything, but all of us were together, the huge crowds marching in support of Julian Assange. I was right behind his dad and Stella in the line. And I was so incredibly moved by, I've always been a supporter of Julian Assange, but to be there with that massive, and then relating to him as an independent journalist, thinking, now they can come for me when I say something out of line. And what I'm seeing in my own circles, and it's a little bit distressing, but I'll get to conflict revolution and how I'm applying it. But I'm seeing so many people just throwing out the propaganda. They're sure of this, they're sure of that. It's the court of public opinion. And there's no way to even reach them to say, wait a minute, let's look at this. And it just becomes vitriol. And my heart is aching because I don't see them like that. And I never looked at people who voted for Trump as horrible people. I just never did. I had so many people Republicans who were going to vote for Bernie. And then when we all got, the shaft for that, I thought, I don't blame you. But what I'm seeing is the hearts and the minds of good people, the heart and the mind of this country being polluted by this propaganda that people aren't even really truly aware of the level that's being rained down upon them.
Yes. And folks, we are going to get paranormal-esque or whatever happens with me and Barbara, because me and Barbara, maybe we're just a little political today. Sorry. I can't mute anymore. In fact, it's funny what you're saying, because I was just talking. I really, especially on my Instagram and my TikTok, I like to just keep it jokes or whatever. And I try to not, if you're going to see my comedy, you're not going to see any politics. So I leave that open. But it's funny because something I'm seeing on the paranormal, not on the political, is everyone is so sure of themselves. And this has become a problem because people that are making up stuff are saying it as though it is fact. And there are no facts in the paranormal. Your experience, my experience, all different, and I think it's bad, the people making these statements. And we have to remember the term con man comes from the two words confidence man. A confident man is a con man. And I think people need to step back. But what happens is, even if you throw something out there, no matter what it is, you will be attacked. And when you're attacked, that defense position of, I know I'm right because. So it's funny that you even said that about people being so sure of themselves in politics like that. I agree.
Well, and so, but getting to the paranormal, or, because conflict revolution came out of a series of channeling sessions that I did with the angels and then Einstein. And the angels early on came and they said, and this was in the 90s, they said, we have this revolutionary way, we think, to resolve conflict within an individual's psyche that we feel would be a pathway to global peace, but we need people to test it on their real conflicts. And so me and my associates, the psychic sorority, there were 3 of us, and we held these groups and we took the notes, they step-by-step instructions they gave us. And then, of course, we had our first conflict and we applied the process, and it was a revolutionary outcome to what that was. So what I'm seeing in the world as applied through conflict revolution, and it's, Einstein was a visionary to see that we were going to come to this place in the world, is that if we apply the principles of it, just we can do it on the microcosm of individuals, is that first, we need to be responsible for ourselves before we project onto other people. And if you do the macrocosm, if every nation in this world said first, okay, what are we doing that contributes to it? It would be a completely different world. Now, how we get there is kind of a slow slog, I think, because what I've been very emotional lately. I've been emotional about Julian Assange. I've been emotional about the wars that are going on. And I've been emotional about seeing my beloved friends who won't even speak to me anymore because I don't carry their propaganda line. And yet I can recognize that this isn't what their hearts are. This is a very concerted effort to have this influence. And, you started out with Hitler, yes, I channeled Hitler in my book, Party of 12. And one of the questions was, why should we talk to you? And he said, because all the people who are marching in hate or who are carrying, Nazi propaganda or anything, they have no idea what's going to happen to them after they die. They think that, there's going to be the 7 Vestal Virgins, or, my cause is the right cause and your cause is the wrong cause. But then when you get into afterlife, you have to be responsible for every single bit of energy that you lived through, every decision that you made, every projection that we make. And right now, I think what's happening is that, for me anyway, I have been working conflict revolution, and every time that I see someone outside myself being what I think is just stupid, what are you saying? That doesn't even make any sense, and I get all frustrated. And then I have to feel and breathe all that and continually revolve to where I need to remember the truth of what I know. And it's really hard right now. I want to project.
First of all, this is all brilliant. We're going to take a break, but this is right out of the gate, brilliant. And folks, all Barbra's website and everything is going to be in the show notes, because you're going to want to get all her books and this book and that we're talking about. And we're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back.
Are you a seeker who craves a life of authenticity and freedom, but can't seem to get unstuck from experiences of duality? My name is Z. And I spent years stuck in victimhood, craving enlightenment, but trapped in a cycle of 2 steps forward and what felt like 100 steps back. I felt like I was drowning in fear and shame until I started learning about the nervous system. It turns out that while we are spiritual beings, we are only able to be here because of these physical bodies. And the nervous system is just trying to keep us alive by bringing us back to fight, flight, freeze responses. We can get stuck in these defense states, or we can gain resilience by developing a respectful and trusting relationship with our nervous system. If you're ready to learn more, check out my YouTube channel and join us for online coaching and courses by going to www.anexperiencer.com. That's anexperiencer.com. See you there.
And I'm going to make this announcement now. As you know, I let my guests say whatever they want, and I'm extending that also to Barbara. Everybody's welcome to have an opinion because I know we're going into some strange areas. And I don't correct people. I let them have their opinion and I have mine and whatever. So, and we may not even be going in touchy areas. I don't know. I just thought I'll throw that out there. If you think something's going to upset you, maybe this particular podcast isn't for you. Barbara, I've been doing, inspired by your book, of course, I have been doing just the shadow of, I can't stand that person. Why, until I get to, okay, that person's a know-it-all. Wait, I'm a know-it-all. Do you know what I mean? Like digging until you go, why does this bother me? Does this bother me because I think this person is a phony and then I feel like a phony, or what is it? And I think that exercise works wonders. And also, I know that you're also in the camp of we create our own reality, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm 80% in that camp. And I feel like there are factors that we obviously can't control. Some of them could be soul contracts. And then some of them are just, I would say, general public. Okay. Again, just my theory. But I kind of feel like you could create your own reality, but y'all were in a lockdown. You know what I mean? Like we couldn't uncreate that. You could create a great lockdown, but we couldn't, whatever they did, period. Anyways.
Yeah.
So I had a guest on that explained this all, and I was kind of like antsy because something wasn't going right. And, but anyways, but I'm betting that one hasn't even aired yet. Everybody's going to love it. So please do love them all and sign up for everybody's email list. But I do, correct me if I'm wrong, but like when we get that space inside where nobody really bothers us, and this is very important, it's not a better than. I hear a lot of better than. I had this, so I know. Go ahead, Karen, believe in your demons or whatever. I know. And it's not like that. It may even be that we're all in different dimensions right now. I don't know. I'm going to let you pick that up if you have anything to say on all that.
Well, I've been in this place for the past few years. After 30 some years of this work, I reached this point where my triggers were so low, and it was a miracle to me because I came out of a very traumatic childhood and life, and I've struggled with emotional stuff. So to have this incredible unified field within me where I wasn't triggered by people, it wasn't about being better than anyone. Right. It was about this, it was almost like a humility of where my ego was in its proper place, which was to be observing and then listening for intuition and then making those decisions and being in present moment, so that when I was with people and not triggered by them, I felt that common human connection of heart to heart, no matter who they were. And I say that not because it's past tense, but since that Julian Assange rally, and since the ramped up wars, it doesn't even matter what side you're on. In 1955, Einstein's last manifesto was pleading to world leaders to resolve their conflicts peacefully because no one will survive World War III. In 1955, that was his last. And so when I see the world in this place being pushed by everything, all of us collectively, I get really emotional about it. And so I've been triggered lately And it's been, like you said, I have to keep going back to, wait a minute, I can look at him, my friend who was saying absolutely stupid things about this and that. I have to bring it back to me. And it's almost just today, I was sort of bemoaning the fact is like, do I have to get to this sort of Jesus level? Do I have to get to this like Buddha level where I'm just this perfect human being? Can't I be human? Well, yes, of course. We all have to deal with what is coming at us. And this is why we're here. It's not to make a bunch of money or achieve these things. It's for us to evolve ourselves to this higher level of consciousness. And this is how we do it.
And and that's why, is this your fourth time on in like 2 years? Like I've only known you like 2 years.
I think so.
It's either your third or fourth. And you're never condescending. That's why I love talking to you. And it can sort of also be an understanding. And I think that's when when we get triggered, it's because there's an understanding that we both are coming from this point of pain. Did that make any sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I think that in the very esoteric, let's get out of the concrete, struggle of being human, and that kind of the esoteric idea that we are all one body. And in fact, Einstein's maps, the unified field that he's delivered, and the maps of human consciousness have the source of everything in the center of the planet, where we are all rooted together as one being. Mm-hmm. And so to be separate in this world and have people like, I can't control what he said, the stupid things that I think he said, but I can recognize that in the esoteric, he is a part of me. You are a part of me. The people that I think are doing the most egregious wars are a part of me. And for me to go in and hold that and then do the process that is designed to revolutionize my microcosm of that has to have an impact on the macrocosm. I'm not going to have a ceasefire in the Middle East, but when I find that peace and when I become that more evolved being, I'm holding that space and then shining that light for others to also be inspired.
Right. And then someone else comes along and goes, why does Barbra look like she's not bothered by this? Tell me about that. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
And, I really do think the wars are not about groups. They're about 4 or 5 men. And I will say men that want land or power or something. Then they kind of gin it up and then everybody's mad. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And now we're wiping out these people, or we're bombing this city because 2 guys in it are it's just crazy. It's so many people are dead.
I know. And, when I was at the Assange rally, I took this picture of a poster that was up, and it was a quote from him. And it said, people don't like wars. They have to be lied into them.
Yes.
So we have to tell the truth to get into peace. And I think that's it, is that when they lie to us and then they divide us and they have us all fighting against each other, it takes really a monumental effort and intention to step outside that. Even when you're getting sucked in, I've been sucked in for the past few weeks. And,
me too. And I see that person on the news and I'm like, if everybody just knew what was wrong with that person, I'll be fine, but nobody's listening.
Right. And then I go in, I have this thing on my social media where I'm not going to, I don't want to see a bunch of people projecting on other people. I don't want to listen to you talk about the other side, no matter what side you're on, if you're not going to take responsibility for your side.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't even a divisive statement. That's not like saying you're wrong or this side is right and that side's right. It's saying to everybody, are you going to take responsibility for yourself? And if it's a party thing, for your party.
Yeah. And
I don't want to.
No, and everybody knows it doesn't take much to figure out I lean left. But the real, and I fell for some of the propaganda, but the real thing was when they went into South Carolina and decided Biden was the nominee. And if you couldn't look at that as a Democrat and go, the people did not make that decision. Whoever, MSNBC or whoever, they made the decision that that's who our president was going to be. And now we're stuck in the same place. And I don't ever remember an election that wasn't the most important election.
I know,
we
right?
Can't have a third party because this one, maybe next time, this is the most important election. And you know what? Not a lot has changed. But it's also that the feeling of helplessness. I remember I was just listening when I was a little kid, my favorite movie was Hair, and I don't even like musicals. And Treat Williams swinging from a chandelier with his shirt open led to a lifetime of bad choices in men. But but I just turned it on again, and I had tears in my eyes when the ending scene, they show all the people descending upon Washington to end the Vietnam War. And it still gives me chills right now. But I wonder if that's not, like, I stood with millions all over the world to protest the Iraq War. My mom and I flew to Washington and did it, and it didn't make a difference. So he was just going to do it. And that to me is like where it gets a little, where Barbara's going to calm me down. Because what do we do? Because let's say there is an Illuminati, or we don't even have to make them that paranormal or that creepy. There's certain groups making decisions for us that don't listen to our votes or don't care. I think, would you disagree with that?
No, I absolutely agree. And I think this is why I'm on this world peace tour, because Einstein said, first of all, we can't go at the problem at the level it's being created. Mm-hmm. So we can't go directly at it like we used to. And also that my theory and Einstein's theory about conflict revolution is that if it works in the microcosm like it does, then if enough of us do it, it works in the macrocosm. So let me just explain briefly. So here's an example, and I might have used this example, but I love it anyway. I had a woman in a workshop, and she brought her conflict. You bring a conflict to the workshop, and we pull it apart, and we teach you how to do it. And her conflict was that her mother-in-law hated her. And she was a woman from Barbados. She was married to a Norwegian guy, and she was convinced that her mother-in-law hated her so bad that she wanted to have her deported. Okay, so imagine that. So that is the microcosm of war. Okay, you have this powerful person who's trying to destroy you. And when she got the revolution, and she looked at me with big tears in her eyes, she said, "You knew where this was going, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes, but not because I'm a psychic, but because it's a formula." And she said, "I'm homesick." And I said, "Why don't you go back to Barbados?" "Oh, I've got these children and this husband." And I'm thinking she's got like a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old, and her husband works 80 hours a week. "No, how old are your kids?" 14 and 17. So within her was the voices of culture that she couldn't reach, as she was projecting it onto her mother-in-law. And when she took ownership of that part of her mechanism, her intellect that was telling her these lies, this propaganda, and she broke down that inner propaganda to understand that, oh, wait a minute, I can make different choices. I can deal with my emotions differently. I can admit that I'm lying to myself and blocking myself. Her whole relationship with her mother-in-law changed. Wow. 25 years of thinking her mother-in-law hated her and wanted her to be deported. And now she goes to Barbados on a regular basis, happily, probably by now, that was some years ago, she's probably bringing her kids with her, and they're having this. So if we can do it on a microcosm, where our changing ourselves changes the dynamic of what happens around us. And I have so many stories like that where I do this revolution where I'm just so in conflict, and it's this guy and it's that guy, and I take that responsibility, and then, like, miraculously, revolutionarily, something happens that I could never have made happen.
Wow.
And that's why I think if we were all to do this, if we were all to go in and look at this Illuminati of our minds, look at this propaganda in our intellects, and then there's a way that we align to compassion, we call it, and we have these 3 human dimensions that we work with. And when we align and we're doing the bidding of our intuition, which is really the voice of God within us, instructing us, and we're following those instructions and making those decisions, we impact how matter manifests around us. That's the miraculous scientific part of it, that we actually can influence how matter manifests around us. And I was talking to someone else on a podcast the other day about, this is the way that we take away the power of the Illuminati. This is how they begin to then, either they rise to the occasion or they disappear. So either they get transformed or they go away.
So continue with that a little bit, because also I'm going to throw in a weird, hold that note about the Illuminati have to level up. That's the note I want to hold. But there's also this weird thing going on, like, in our growth. And this is something about intuition that I don't think I could have done years ago. And I don't know why it works now, but now I have an impulsive intuition. And I mean that in a good way. In other words, I'm sort of thinking about buying a car. I know when the right car comes up, I will immediately hear, that's the one, or no.
Yes.
And that is so much stronger now than it has ever been. And I have a friend, you know who you are, that's getting messages. Literally, homeless guys are coming up and making psychic predictions to him where he's like, who? What are you? What happened? And that's when you have to move on that impulse. But it's like you said, this woman unpacking this with the things that scare her. Like going back to Barbados, or what would I lose, or something like that. That fascinates me, where we get in our own way. I mean, there are real obstacles sometimes, but that was a long road to get there, wasn't it?
Yes, and what you're talking about is that when we teach this, with these 3 human dimensions of emotion, intuition, and intellect, is that when emotion, which is really, we want to be able to feel and move the whole unified field of emotion through our bodies and through our system without letting it cling to a thought that gets projected. Right. So instead of, suppressing anger or fear, we breathe it through, but we don't let it cling to the thought of, dreadful outcomes or horrible pasts. We breathe it and we move it in a different way. And that brings intuition stronger. And what you're talking about is, so intuition has different levels. So there's intuition. It's always an impelling statement, or maybe not even a statement, but it's an impelling to take the next step that's for the good of the whole. So in essence, intuition is telling your heart to beat heart, beat heart, beat heart. But it's not going through your intellect. It's going straight from your intuition into your heart. And there's no thinking involved. None of us have to sit here and go, beat heart, beat heart. So when you master your intellect, when you get free from that propaganda from the voices of culture that tell you can't be this intuitive, or that's not the car to buy, and you just let that emotion flow and you let that intuition guide you, then when intuition says, buy that car, your body, it's in your body. It's not in your head. And then your head catches up and goes, oh, yes, this is it. I know, because I feel it in my gut, or I feel it in my body. And that's how we're supposed to be operating.
And that's interesting. And people, I'm just going to give you a little cue. And this is one of the things that I teach in my tarot class and sometimes in my Patreon is, oh my God, and we're at the 20-minute mark again, is do memory exercises. Get memory exercises on your phone and do them as much as you can, because your intuitive information is the first piece that hits before all of the, I don't know, I shouldn't do that, it would take a lot of work. And when you work on these memory exercises, that impulsive intuition that I just described and that Barbara described even better, it's louder. And you get it faster. All right, everybody, hang on. We'll be right back. God, this is flying by. It's so great. Okay.
Hey, everybody, how's that spiritual awakening going? I know. Don't worry. Help is here. HighlySpiritualPerson.com is a haven for spiritual misfits and empaths navigating spirituality and mental health. My friend Camille has a plethora of resources on her site to help you on your spiritual journey, even if you're just starting out. It includes individual and collective Reiki sessions, personalized guided meditations, sleep affirmation tracks, and so much more. Camille has so much to offer. She's going to be on my podcast in December. I can't wait to talk to her. Her blog posts and podcast episodes explore spirituality and are great for folks carving out their own path. She has written 2 easy-to-follow guidebooks, one on breathwork, and the newest book is called Manifestation is Easy, and it features 22 step-by-step manifestation techniques, as well as tips and advice on how to overcome the most common blocks and start changing your reality. Go to highlyspiritualperson.com. I promise you, you will get lost in how much information is in there. It's one of my favorite rabbit holes.
All right, so we're back. And I like this. I'm going to ask a very 3D kind of stupid question. So, because I feel like, first of all, I feel like we beat the economy this year. I also want to say this. I think I'm going to say my guests have been so great this year for the podcast. Like, I just feel like this year has been off the hook, which is great. People like you, Barbara, just have been bringing it like nobody's business, and I appreciate that. So let's say I feel like we beat the economy last year, whatever, it was supposed to crash or whatever, and people were just like, screw it, I'm going to buy what I want. And it didn't crash. I don't know if we can hold that thinking forever, because I already feel people pulling back. And one of the things when I see them pulling back is when, like, they don't buy tickets for a show until that day. Everything sells out that day. Nobody's willing to go into the future and say, hey, let's make plans to do this. So let's say the Illuminati is 5 guys in a room, and they start to see, when you say level up, would that be them saying, hey, we told them the economy was going to crash and they just ignore us. We got to level up. Is that kind of what you mean?
Well, I think more, I mean that there are things that happen that when you hear the Illuminati, whoever they are.
Right. And you may not even believe in that term, folks. It's just a good overall grabber.
Yeah, it's the metaphor for whoever is doing this. And, the World Economic Forum is pretty blatant now.
Yeah.
And I do this too, where I hear those messages that they're giving us. They want us to believe, that they want us to be in a fear of. And when I take that in and I feel and breathe my fear, and I don't let it attach to any thought processes, and I take care of my thought process and I follow my intuition, suddenly I'm seeing somebody who is actually speaking at the World Economic Forum, giving them the what for, telling them, no, I came here to tell you, you're not going to get away with this. I was shocked. I can't remember who it was. And I keep seeing then also people waking up, even though we're in chaos, more and more people saying, no, that's propaganda. I'm not going to buy it. So I see those changes happening at I would say it's a more grassroots level. And Matthias Desmet said it. He's a Belgian psychotherapist and statistician who wrote a book called The Psychology of Totalitarianism. And
was that you and I talk about that book before, right? Did we?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah. And so he has this image of, you have this pyramid, right? And there's all the people, and then there's the leader is at the top. And all these misconceptions that, well, we just need a different leader. We just need a different leader. But if everybody's still in that state of propping up a leader as if they're going to be the one to save us, we just exchange leaders that are doing the same thing. So when we as a group, as individuals within, the collective consciousness, begin to change ourselves so that we don't prop up the leaders. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing in a lot of the movement around me anyway, is people starting to just get this. And it's not something that just miraculously, like I said, you just don't do conflict revolution and then suddenly there's world peace in one day. But in your own life, there can be. And it incrementally by incrementally, as we reject those messages of the Illuminati and say, I don't think so. And then you see suddenly there's truckers, right? There's farmers everywhere, just with their tractors saying no, and they're pushing back and they're pushing down. And you just see it in all these different places, this change that is happening.
Yes. And, I think that's really inspiring. And sometimes I say things and people think I'm pessimistic, but I'm actually very optimistic because I do think it could get harder before it gets easier. But exactly what you're talking about. And there's again, please feel free to disagree. It's not about putting your head in the sand, because for a reason I stopped watching everybody. I was just like, I don't want to hear that anymore. And everybody that's backing that, I can't do it. And it was a lot of the news channels that not on TV, but on YouTube, that I had loved. And I was like, nope, this is just aggravating you. And I turned it off. And it turns out you're really not uninformed. You will find out what's going on somehow. So it's not about turning everything off. Do you know what I mean? I don't think we can bury our head in the sand and let them just set off a nuclear bomb because we're not active. But I think you can space from it somehow, right?
I think so. I think so too. And I think in that vein, I think what's happening right now is this great inner shift of, we put up with stuff for whatever reason. Our intellect says we have to be nice, or we have to believe this, or we have to do that. And I think right now that's all breaking down to where it's like, it's not that I don't want to be nice, but I don't want to hear that. And for me, what I'm doing is I want to hear a lot of different things. Like, I'm drawn to wanting to hear all different sides of something rather than just the side that I think is the right side. And then I can determine from my intuitive feel, my body going, oh, nope, not that. Oh, yes, drawn to there. Or, this person has been in my life and, I don't really feel drawn to them anymore. But my mind is saying I should be their friend. But you know what? That's really not who I want to spend my energy with. So I'm going to kind of let them go. I think this is major shift that's going on in all of us. And it's a little disconcerting because we're letting go of the old in ourselves and people around us and what we watch. And then we're opening up to new and different ways to do it. But I love what you said, because it isn't about putting your head in the sand. It's really about growing and discerning, being more discerning.
Yeah, there's literally too much. I don't know how to say that. Maybe I just feel like where there is a point where we have to be aware. I had a friend say to me, whether anyone likes him or not, I had a friend say to me, I can't believe I'm voting. Of course I'm voting for Joe Biden. I can't believe the Democrats didn't find anybody to go up against him. And I was like, they did. His name is Robert Kennedy, and he got banned from everything so that you didn't think he was there. And that's the kind of I don't mean to answer like that, because I know I was just like that guy. I would at one point just watch MSNBC, and whatever they told me was true. But I feel like that's the kind of stuff where you want people to wake up, because whether people like him or not, whenever RFK spoke and they did, you could read in the comments on YouTube, boy, I think I would vote for this guy. Like, he was really a threat to whatever is going on. Hopefully he's still a threat, but I don't know. But I really feel like he came in from the outside with that rational thinking. Again, when these people get in office, I don't know if what happens to even the best of them. But it was interesting to kind of see as the people just even go, who's that? It would be like the Illuminati getting nervous. No, don't look over there. Look over here.
Yeah, and when you can start to recognize that, for example, for me, I was a Democrat. I'm not a Democrat anymore.
Me too.
But and what I say to people is, here, if this was not politics, and you told me that there was this group of people who actually screwed you out of something that was really important by doing kind of illegal things, but you're just going to keep going along with them because fill in the blank, your intellect is going to tell you this propaganda. There's something amiss between your intuition and your intellect, because intuition is not going to lead you to that group of people. It's going to try to get you to self-love and have self-respect, to say, no, you are not the people that I'm going to hang around with. And I think that kind of discernment, and it's on both sides politically. I mean, I've never had a love for the Republican Party.
No, I'm not wearing that label either, right?
But for everyone, is that if this group of people is screwing you, there's going to be some internal conflict within you that's at play that then is getting projected, as we're seeing. So I think there's a lot of this incremental waking up because of people like Robert Kennedy, who is speaking a lot of the truth that they're trying to censor. And I'm somebody who, like, if you're going to censor someone, I want to know what they're going to say.
Right.
Like, and I think people are getting there. And I happen to think it's because we are getting in this time where intuition and compassion are being, compassion, especially because of the state of the world that's so sad, is it also bringing up more intuition and more of the voice of God. And now if we can get that intellect and all that propaganda dealt with, now we're going to be able to be aligned to compassion and then naturally begin to manifest outside ourselves.
Yes, that sounds wonderful. Also, I feel like it'll get a little worse before it will get better. And this is and worse is relative. I think people think chaos is worse. It may not be. If you if we get down to the fact that, we do have heat and electricity and I got food, and let the rest fall apart. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see anybody in turmoil, but I feel like it might, I've always been big for backing up and standing up for the little guy, probably to a fault. Probably I've been wrong a few times, but I don't like a bully. I was raised by a bully, and I almost sometimes can be a bully in the way trying to stand up for the right. Like, I've done that too. But I feel like, it's like when something bad happens at work to someone and nobody says anything because, wow, I don't want to lose my job, or I don't want to, she'll get another job, just forget it. Kind of like that doesn't sit well with me at all. And I think a lot of that's when you wake up, you can't sit and go, you know what? I didn't back that person up. I didn't stand there and go, yeah, don't you can't sexually harass that person, or you can't demote them for that. I think that's the part where when people really get that, they won't be able to live with themselves by just letting and going, well, it's better for me this way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I did a reading the other day, and that's on I have a YouTube channel, Barb with, and it was all about propaganda and how it through the history of propaganda and the wars, the World War I and then World War II, and how it works on us, and the fact that right now we are, and this is where I take heart, is Einstein was saying, when I personally, Barb with, when I started doing this work and my life fell apart, it got worse before it got better because it had to. And I used this process, and it was painstaking, but it brought me to a place of true transformation, rudimental transformation. And so he said in this reading, this is what the world's going through. So you have to know that what happened to you on the microcosm, this is what's happening to the world. It's going to look really chaotic, but it has to fall apart so that it can be rebuilt in a much more rudimental way, and hopefully on compassion, be built on compassion.
You know, that's why I don't feel afraid of anything. Like, I am still the person that's like, I got my popcorn and I got my movies, and
Right.
let me watch the movie while you guys, I'll step in if I think I need to. But I feel especially too, and you probably know this now, not owning things or not having things or not being attached to things. You can own a lot of things and not be attached to them. Where you're not losing something. But I think I freaked out some ladies in yoga today. I was like, oh, it's so chaotic because we're just the red tape of dealing with the government to help out my mom. It's like it's such a roller coaster and it's not over. I thought it was over. It's not over. And I kind of said something about exactly what we're talking about in yoga. And I didn't realize this about a lot of ladies who then I saw the fear on their faces and they were like, well, how long is it going to last? What do you mean? But like, they got very like, should I be saving canned goods kind of, when I was like, in my mind, I'm kind of like, well, we're going to go through it, and it'll be what it'll be. And we're all going to be okay. And I thought, oh, wrong group to say that. And,
and in that sense, one of the things that I'm really loving is that I can discern. Like, there are certain audiences we can be way open with, and certain audiences where I just want to be compassionate, because the people who are going to be caught off guard or maybe aren't going to make it through, or, I don't know how that is all determined. We all need compassion. And my biggest kick these days is being as nice as I possibly can. And not that I'm always, but face to face with people, bringing in the smile, bringing in the light, and putting aside my judgments of them. It generates that from them. And I've been noticing that as I've been traveling around so much, is just bringing that, and it's so much joy. It just brings me so much joy, and little teeny things like that.
Yeah, and it's one of those where I am so used to my paranormal metaphysical friends that it means nothing to go, yeah, I think this is going to go on until 2027. Like, I wasn't even thinking that, oh, they're not in on the whatever I want to call it, the conversation. And then well, wait, is it the year of the dragon? Is that why? And I was like, no, we're all going to be okay. But it didn't even occur to me that I wasn't around my tribe. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think they all had a good day. I think they went right into denial and it was fine. Yeah, by the end of class, it was fine.
But you never know you never know down the road, because I've had these too, where I've hammered away at people who are just propaganda. And I stand up with that truth that Julian Assange wants me to speak. Keep speaking the truth. You get some resistance. And then finally, because it's the truth, it's not because I'm saying it. It's because it's the truth. And the truth has its own inspiration. It has its own power. And even though people reject it, there comes a time often where they recognize the truth because you've said it. Like back in 2011, when I said to my friends, this is a corporate fascist takeover, and they said, you can't use that F word. And I actually said to them, you just wait. You just wait and remember this moment, because you're going to be using the F word too.
Isn't it funny? Do you ever have somebody that you're like that with, and then all of a sudden they come back to you with the information like they discovered it? Like you've been saying it to them for years, and then they're like, "Hey, did you know?" Yeah, I that's good. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Wonderful, brilliant as always, Barbra. Tell everyone where they can see you, where they can see your YouTubes, the website, everything.
Okay, so go to barbrawith.com, and if you go to the contact page and you put in Karen 20, I'll give you 20% off a reading. Yay! And go to synergyalliance.llc, and you'll see the whole story of the psychic sorority. All the books are there. Conflict Revolution is there. All my podcasts, you'll be there, and catch up with me. There, I had some great events going on.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Tell everybody about April, just because I'm not sure. This might be up that same time or it might not. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, if this is up after April, just know that I have been invited to speak at the Science of Consciousness convention at the University of Arizona. And this is scientists. These are scientists, scientific theories and presentations. I think the only name I recognize in there is Deepak Chopra as somebody who isn't a scientist. But I have been invited to present the unified field and the maps of human consciousness. And I'm just out of my mind excited about getting this information. I'm a little nervous, like, well, I talked to dead people and I talked to Einstein, and here's what he said. But I know how it's been received in the past by my amateur physicists, and I'm just really, really excited. And then I'm doing Conflict Revolution. I'm doing some group channeling. So just go to either of those two websites and sign up and get my blog posts and my videos. And that's where I am.
And because it's easy, barbrawith.com will take you to the other website also, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And you're going to be so great at that. And book a reading, everybody. I'm so glad you're doing that again.
Yes, I've just been loving it.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. All right, and have fun in Scotland.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Barbra. Thank to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Everybody have a great day. I bet some of you are going to listen to this twice because she was so great. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week, or join the Patreon or something. I don't know what's happening. Good luck.
Paranormal Karen. She's a spooky kind of queen. Paranormal Karen.